Welcome to the next devlog for my solo developed game, WANE. WANE is an action horror FPS with a focus on brutal combat and deep exploration. I want to create a game that is both fun to engage with and presents an interesting world to experience. I've done a lot of work since the last video, so let's dive right in. Combat is at the core of the experience, so enemies need to reflect that in their implementation. I've added a second enemy, the Elite variant. These will serve the role of putting more pressure on the player, acting as a much more substantial threat than the chaff enemy. As always, scalability is extremely important as a solo developer. The more scaffolding I can set up now, the easier it will be to add additional content down the line. Having a second enemy allows me to stress test my systems and poke holes in implementations. I refined and reworked my modular piece system. Now an enemy is built in parts, which allows me to separate damage values, add breakables, and incorporate more variety in a streamlined way. In addition to adding an entire new enemy, I also continued work on the AI system. Much of this is behind the scenes, but enemies are now smarter, and the plumbing is much cleaner and shared more often. This makes future work easier and lets me experiment without worrying about breaking things. The introductory level was my next area of focus. I want something playable, so locking down my workflow here was key. I improved and refined my modular level assets. An important change was making a decision on texel density across all of my meshes. The distinction is currently environment, NPC, and the player view models in order from largest to smallest. In practice, this means everything within a category will have pixelation at the same size. This begins to make the art style look more cohesive and deliberate. I had a few requirements for my level flow, so implementing doors was next on my list. While seemingly simple, the infamous door problem reared its ugly head, and the implementation proved more complicated than I had expected. Despite this, I was able to create a double hinge door that swings open and closed depending on the side interacted with. The next order of business was to make a variation that could take damage. This proved far easier and provides another toy for the player to interact with. Another problem I ran into was connecting important locations. As this level is completely an interior space, I needed hallways to bridge most rooms. The problem, though, is that if I decide to move anything, pre-built hallway pieces will break down. The solution to this is making a scalable hallway piece where the texture adjusts accordingly. This allows me to adjust on the fly as needed and has proved invaluable to saving time. This solution is not perfect, though. It operates under the assumption that connections will be straight. In the future, I intend to look into spline mesh implementations for similar use cases or find a plugin. But for now, it does the job. The last piece was lighting. In my very early tests, I had Godot node lights just floating in space, just to get an idea of how it would look. I wanted to fix this, so I made a quick lantern model, start to finish, and now lights in the scene come from actual objects. A small change, but does a lot to start tying the world together. I've done a lot to also improve small aspects of the game. These don't fit quite so neatly into the broader categories from before, but I still feel they are worth sharing. I've implemented a step-up system, so uneven and jagged terrain can now be traversed. I've added visual blood buildup to enemies, so the player now knows how much damage they've been inflicting. I've added feedback for when the player takes damage, with both visuals and audio cues. I've added enemy hit zones, so different parts take more or less damage. I've also done lots of work behind the scenes to make development easier, including reworking and simplifying my animation systems, making enemy logic more reusable, and refactoring and improving very early prototype infrastructure. My ultimate goal for this devlog was to deliver a small playable slice, The original build was just a combat test and did not entirely reflect what I wanted the game to be. This time, I've created a playable level from start to finish. This includes menus to enter and exit, a defined flow with combat encounters, exploration, and an end. I would love any type of feedback and intend to shape my development based on whatever I receive. My philosophy is not to let this bake in obscurity. The idea is for other people to play and hopefully enjoy. So putting it in the hands of players as soon and as often as possible is a priority. The build is up on my itch page, which I have linked below. I am excited to keep pushing forward. The groundwork is finally paying dividends, and my work recently has been less infrastructure and more content. There's a ton more I could talk about, but much of it is the fine detail of the unglamorous work that goes along with this. As the game matures, I hope to have much more exciting stuff to show off. So that's all for now. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I very much do appreciate it. Thanks.